Welcome to everybody. I think I hope you've all answered Ed's little teasing question. Anyway, we'll come back to that later on. Are you ready to make a start, Ed?
Yes, I share screen now, right?
Yes, share screen. And away you go. That's it, that's fine. There we are, that's it.
Okay, I got an unexpected message here. I have to go up here.
Yeah, slideshow from beginning.
Okay, there we are.
Yeah, click on from beginning to get rid of the thumbnails on the left.
Where's from the beginning?
On the left-hand side.
I don't see anything for that.
On the top bar, on the you clicked on slideshow, that's correct. But at the left-hand side there should be something that says from beginning.
I don't have it.
Okay.
Well, let's try this way, okay?
Yeah, it's showing all right. It's just the thumbnails are on the left-hand side.
Okay, should I start?
Yes, yes, you carry on. Yeah, it's all there. We just got the thumbnails on the left.
Oh, I see what you're talking about. Yeah, I just don't see anything to click on to get rid of it.
You should have something on the PowerPoint. You've got from beginning, from current slide, and so on. It varies on different computers, but you normally have something that says from the beginning.
Yeah. Can you excuse me one moment? Come on in. We have somebody coming in. I just have to close the door. Okay. This afternoon's presentation is going to be on the French colonial group type, the French Pacific colonies. The group type has been my favorite collecting area for since about 1976. I just have to get some of the details out of the way early. The focus of my collection had been on usage of the issue in each colony via postal history. It's not a traditional postal history rates and routes exhibit because the rate structure is pretty straightforward. Under UPU, the French packet system was well established. There's a strong emphasis on complexity of the use from the principal towns. That's where you have the most material. A strong emphasis on small village material. That tends to be rare, difficult to find. A lot of unknown details, lots of local postal history. That's often colony specific. There's a strong emphasis in the collection on what's happening during the era of the group type. So I include all of the things that are going on, and there's a lot of unique things to the individual colonies, like a shortage of group type stamps, military franchise mail, the French franchise militaire stamps, creation of provisional date stamp system, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's an opportunity. I realized this at the beginning that one could publish extensively here because so little was done by the French themselves. And I think I have more than 75 publications to date. And what I attempted to do was develop a definitive group type collection for each colony as compared to what I knew about competitors' collections. And today we're going to talk about two very different but related colonies from the French Pacific. The rates are the standard rates of the period. I'm sure lots are familiar with this. 25 centimes to France until January 99. Then it went to 15 to 06. 10 after 06. The local rate was 15 centimes in a village or town. A few colonies had 10 centimes. It was 15 centimes village to village in all colonies, except for New Caledonia, which had a 25 centime village to village rate until 99. Highest local rate in the colonies, and we'll get back to that in a bit. In June 06, the French community rate became 10 centime. There's the military concession rate. which was 15 centimes, the overseas rate, 25, postcard, short and long message rates, printed matter, business papers, commercial samples. The avis de reception was 10 centimes, registration 25, and then the declared value letter, which is based on 3 characteristics. So let's go to New Caledonia to start off with. The colony consisted of a principal island with a capital at Noumea, dozens of small villages located mostly on the coast, local maritime service connecting the small villages. The colony was too mountainous for an extensive road system. New Caledonia was also responsible for the administration of the Loyalty Islands, the New Hebrides, and the Wallace and Fatuna items, which all used group type stamps. The colony provided tropical products and minerals for France, and it also served the French prison population, starting with the Paris Commune of 71. And the colony was served by French packet line tea. So here's New Caledonia. Okay, you can see it's about 400 kilometers long, 50 kilometers wide. The capital is at the southwestern coast at Noumea. If you continue northeast, you come to the Loyalty Islands, the first dependency, then you come to the New Hebrides, and then you continue way out into the Pacific.
You're not scrolling. We still have the first slide. That's it.
Really?
Yep.
Yeah, we're not moving on, Ed.
Wow.
We're still on slide 1.
Is it changed now?
No.
Whoa.
Have you got the thumbnails on the left on your screen?
Yes.
Well, you can click on those to move down.
Did that change?
No.
No, we're still on number 1.
I don't I've never had this problem happen before.
Oh,
There we
right,
go.
we're on to number 3 now.
Okay, is it moving now?
Yeah, that's on to number 4 now.
Yeah, okay, that's the, this is working mode, not presentation mode. Let me try again. Is it moving now?
No.
That's really odd. When I go into presentation mode, it doesn't work. Is it moving?
No.
I have no idea what's wrong.
Well, no, you clicked on from beginning. Try, oh, that's it. It's moving on now. We're up to the map of New Caledonia now.
Yeah, but now I'm in working mode. I'm not in presentation mode.
Well, if that works, go with it.
Okay. Okay. A couple of things won't work. I have I have things appear in the picture.
We've got slide 6 showing now.
Yeah, I know, I see that. Okay, I can't show you what's behind slide 6 in this mode. Oh, I just can't figure out what's going on. And I've given presentations before here and
Oh, yes.
no problem. All right, we'll have to continue this way. I should just note from New Caledonia, there were about 56 stamps and a full complement of postal stationery. And here's the group type stamp, the 1 franc imperforate, showing navigation and commerce, where you put the numeral cliche in the master die, and then the colony name in the second printing. And then we have a proof of the 35 centime stamp, which came out in 1906. New Caledonia didn't get it, but French Oceania did. So let's start out with the view from Noumea when we look at New Caledonia. 40% of the colony's mail, group type mail, originated in Noumea. So that's the center, and I'll show you a few pieces. This is the earliest recorded letter from New Caledonia with group type. It's a 15 centime local rate. It's got a 5 on 75 Dubois provisional and a strip of 10 of the 2 centime to make the rate, and it's to a local military official. And as I said, it's the earliest recorded group type letter to New Caledonia. The stamps were shipped from France in November 1892. The earliest recorded group type use is from Obak, December 11th, 1892. That was also in my collection. And this is the one from New Caledonia. Here's a typical overseas letter with the 25 centime rate. This one happens to go to one of the local British colonies in the Pacific, Fiji. And you can see it's a beautifully written envelope with a nice combination of group types for the 25 centime rate and a nice Suva, Fiji arrival. Here's a declared value letter from Noumea to France. Total postage is 6.80 francs, and that's based on a rate, which is the weight of the envelope was 14.8 grams, which was 15 centimes, registration 25, and insurance based on 9,400 francs was 6 francs 40. And this calculation is based on the cachet on the reverse. This is one of the highest group type frankings from New Caledonia. I'm not sure this is the highest though. And if we go over to the next slide, we can see the declared value letter and what you normally have. You have a manuscript endorsement. This one happens to have a return address of the sender, the chargé hand stamp to indicate it that it's insured. And you can see this one has a line T transit at the bottom. And the cachet on the reverse is the one that gives the information on how you can calculate out the rate. This cachet was specific for New Caledonia, not generally issued. And the letter weighed 14.80 grams. It has 5 wax seals. They're red, and the embossed letters are DB. That's part of the security system. 5 centime printed matter rates are quite common, and I always tried to bring in another element into a common rate. And this one is not to France, which would be typical, but it's to the office at Djibouti in the colony of Obak. This is 1897. So Djibouti was across the bay from Obak at that point, and ultimately became the important port as Obak was just too small. Here's a very rare printed matter piece on a parcel post notice. To my knowledge, it's unique for group type. There are 2 examples known on type de bois. And you can see when you open it up, it's an informational sheet about the arrival of a parcel post piece in Noumea, and it's to the addressee to give them the information so they can pick up the piece and pay properly for it. We get to the military concession rate. Okay, this was 15 centimes in lieu of the 25 centime rate. Like all French concession rates, it required a unit cachet or manuscript authorization. Unique to New Caledonia is the postmaster, military postmaster, created military etiquettes for this mail, and they were put on the envelopes too. However, this was opposed by the Noumea postmaster, and there was a compromise between the military and regular postmasters that the etiquettes would be away from the stamps so as not to impact postal business. And these were used for about a year. And you can see this is a rather nice example. The etiquette is tied by the unit cachet, which is of an engineering unit, good strikes of the Corps d'Armée Noumea. And then when it arrived in Paris, it got the Paris Foreign Office arrival cancel. So that's a very nice example. Here's one that's a little poor in condition, but it's maybe unique, I'm not sure. It has use of 2 etiquettes with the 15 centime rate and a different type of date stamp, the double circle date stamp for the line T carrying of the letter. This is a very rare vehicle for the military concession rate. The letter card, this is one properly used. You can see the unit cachet at the left. It's got transits on the back and a full message inside. My group type collection was about 2,700 covers, and I only had 3 examples of the concession rate on letter cards, one from New Caledonia, one from Senegal, and one from Indochina. As I said, I wrote a lot of articles on this, and one of the articles that I did was the military mail from New Caledonia and French Oceania, a comparison of it in the Collectors Club Philatelist. So here we come to the conundrum. I don't know if any of you have thought about it. This is a cover I unfortunately bought at a Westpac show, military concession rate. It's a military concession rate from a small village. The village is Ubache. You can just read the cancellation. It's actually January 23rd, 1898, 15 centime rate. Looks good there. It's got a Corps d'Armée Noumea transit validating the military concession rate. And it's to an addressee in Nevers in France, which is more or less in the center of France. One turns it over, it's got a line T transit, which it should have, a Bordeaux arrival, and then a transit from a small town in the Gironde, but no arrival. Relative to the military validation, there's a nice cachet of the Service de Santé, the health service on Ile Nou, and a nice manuscript endorsement and signature from the local commander. So I bought this cover and I added it to the collection. And then when I started writing it up, I noticed there was a problem with this cover. Has anybody spotted the problem? You can unmute yourself and give me your answer.
Has the stamp been added afterwards?
No, stamp is genuine. It started out in Ubache. No problem with that. And it went through Noumea.
But it took nearly a year, Ed, to get there. Would that be normal?
Very good, Mick. You're getting it. You're getting it. Yes, look at the Corps d'Armée hand stamp Noumea on the front. 28th January 1898. Now let's look at the line T transit on the back. Line T 25th of December 98. So that means, according to those date stamps, it took 11 months to get from the Noumea post office to the dock where line T called, which is about a mile, maybe 2 miles away at most. It took 11 months to do that transit. So, you know, one can start imagining something. Maybe it got lost and it hung around the post office for 11 months and they sent it on. That's a possible explanation. But you would think they would add something to the letter were that the case. The next one, once you realize there's a problem with this letter, you start looking a little deeper. Turns out that the Service de Santé on Ile Nou is in the Noumea harbor. Okay, it's an island in the Noumea harbor where the military were. Ubache is way up on the east coast at the northern end of the island. Why does it have the cachet of a military unit in Noumea when it originated way up on the east coast, you know, a couple 100 kilometers away? That's a question. And then the arrival is missing. You know, there's no arrival. So does anybody see what the problem is yet? Any answers? No, nobody sees it. It turns out this cover front and this cover back did not originate together. When I started looking at this very, very carefully and put my 20 power magnifying glass on the corners, on the edges rather, of the envelope, somebody had very, very carefully taken the back of one envelope and glued it to the front of the other envelope. to present a cover with a beautiful military cachet and looking like it had all the details, line T transit. So it's the front of a cover from a small village, and it's the back of a military concession rate cover that probably originated in Noumea at Ile Nu. And somebody has put these together, and it's the first time I've ever seen that. And of course, I bought it, but by the time I was writing it up, there was no chance of getting my money back. This is Ile Nu. You see, this is Noumea right in here, and here's Ile Nu over here right by Noumea. So what do you do when you get something like this? You write about it, and you tell everybody what a big mistake you've made, and be careful you don't make this mistake when you're buying material for your collection. A different front and a different back glued together. So let's get back to Noumea. Noumea was the only colony that sold advertising on postal stationery. They sold the advertising, and then the sender of the purchaser of these envelopes got a reduced rate of 15 centimes for the 25 centime envelope because of the 5 blocks of advertising. There are 3 varieties recorded of different advertising. Only 5 pieces known, and I had 2 of them in the collection. I didn't have all 3 advertising pieces. Here's part of the era collection, mail from the period that doesn't involve group type. It was from Noumea, coming out of the Noumea post office in 1894, unpaid letter via packet line T from a prisoner, Calderon, at the Mont-Ravel prison camp to the mayor of a small French village requesting information on his sister. Prisoners did not have ready access to the post office. They could send their letters unpaid and they would arrive postage due. And this is really a very, very nice one at the New Caledonia post office. They put the T for unpaid letter, went on line T, and when it arrived at its destination, it was the 25 centime rate, so they doubled it, and it's a 50 centime postage due from the addressee. A really nice example of that usage. 1900 overprints. Okay, the slide that had all the list of stamps was blocked. In 1900, there were a few overprints done in New Caledonia. And here's a revision of the 4. They were making 5 centime stamps, which they were more in need of. A nice strip at the 15 centime rate from Noumea to Basse-Terre, which is a really fantastic destination for mail from Noumea. You can see the line T transit. However, when you look at the stamps, you notice that the middle cliche for the overprint has slipped down about halfway. And the 5 has come out on 2 stamps instead of on just the center one. So it's a nice printing variety to be able to collect on a normal letter going to an exceptional destination. Okay, here we have another one. Actually, I can. That's the kagu bird, the national bird of New Caledonia. Most countries like the United States have the eagles. They have the kagu bird. Let me see if I can eliminate that. I can. The Jubilee overprints were created in 1903 to celebrate 50 years of French rule of the colony. It showed that bird. You can see him up top, the flightless kagu bird. The issue was also created to provide a new issue to sell to the philatelic market. But Paris refused to allow exploitation of the philatelic market. They were under the gun for too many overprints from too many colonies. So the government in France limited the use of this overprint to local mail. So they went ahead, they did the overprint, but it could only be used on local mail. And here's a nice example of the 40 centime used on a simple registered envelope, 15 centimes postage, 25 centimes registration, commercial usage locally in Noumea. Very, very nice. In addition to the group type stamps, they overprinted the postage due, the Duval postage due stamps with the same overprint, the 50th anniversary of French rule. And here's a letter out of Sydney, New South Wales in Australia, improperly sent at the 2-penny rate in lieu of the 2.5-penny rate. So it was a halfpenny short. They noted that at the Sydney post office and struck it with the Sydney postage due T in shield, T5 for 5 centimes. And when it got to Noumea, they calculated that as you double the deficiency. And so we have proper use of 2 5-centime stamps. To my knowledge, this is the only proper use of Jubilee postage due stamps on a regular letter. There was a postcard in a very famous exhibition, I won't say whose, protect the guilty here. There was a postcard with a 5-centime Jubilee postage due stamp on it. I saw it at the '89 Paris show, and when I looked closely at that postcard, the postage due stamp was canceled 4 days before the postcard left Sydney. So obviously it was an addition and a fake, yet it was in a famous exhibit. I did an article on this aspect of New Caledonia postal history, and that one got me a cover in the Collectors Club Philatelist. Small villages, many of these, the mail is very limited with only 1 or 2 letters known. Others are more expensive. Here's a nice letter from the small village of Lafoa. A few of the villages had an archaic style of date stamp where they did not include the colony's name. They just had post, P-O-T-E-S, P-O-T-E-S, yeah, P-O-S-T-E-S. And then the name of the town. So you see Post Lafoa, a nice combination of 40 and 50 centime group type stamps to prepay the registered rate. And then it came on the Modane-Paris rail line. So it landed in Brindisi in Italy, coming through the canal and up Italy, and then across on the Modane-Paris rail line. Here's one from the office of Goldman, located in the very northern part of the colony, where instead of going through the post office, they used the telegraph office cachet. Goldman was the terminus of the Australia-New Caledonia telegraph cable. This is the send portion of a send reply postal card sent to a local village up north named Vaux, and the telegraph office cachet was used to obliterate the stamp. This is probably a unique usage. It's not recorded in the Sine book on New Caledonia and French Oceania. And if you turn it over to read the message, it shows it's an order for vegetables from a greengrocer info for the staff at the telegraph office. So it all fits together very nicely. Here's a more proper letter from Goldman, double weight registered with a wonderful combination of group type stamps. Again, the Modane-Paris Transit. A lot of early mail, the 1890s mail from New Caledonia with group type, shows use of the provisional overprints on type de bois stamps that were used in the 1880s in New Caledonia. And if you look at the upper right, you can see the type de bois stamp with the NCE 10 overprint, which is very nice. But if you look more carefully, you notice the 10 overprint is upside down. So we have a proper double weight registered letter to France employing the inverted overprint variety, which is a nice example. The Jubilee stamps were also overprinted to create new values. And this is an example of 4 of the 10 on 15 stamps used to prepay, again, that local rate of 15 centimes postage, 25 registration. And it brings in another element. When post offices were newly opened in New Caledonia, they get provisional date stamps with no town name. You notice there's no town name here. So that means this is a newly opened office, not sure for the moment which one, on a proper registered letter to Noumea. There are probably less than 10 covers known with these provisional date stamps. And again, I found this a topic for another article just covering what I knew and what I could put together about the use of these date stamps, which lacked village names. Here's a real nice one from the little village of Teouidi, which has one of these provisional cancels to which they've added manuscript information. You see the date stamp just on the postcard. It says New Caledonia. They've written in the village on the bottom, and then it's 2/10/1902. And that's just when the post office opened. It's a properly franked 10-centime postcard, went via Noumea, arrived in Brussels. And you turn it over and it's got a nice picture of the Kanaka natives with a message. So all in all, a very, very nice and unusual postcard showing use of these provisional date stamps. Here is one of my absolute favorite small village items. It's a postcard from the village of Pandemi to Noumea. And you see the arrow, you can see where this village is high up on the west coast. And somebody used a registered Dubois postcard, which was 20 years old at this time, and they added Jubilee overprints, but they brought it to the 45 centime rate, 10 centimes overpaid. I'll give you a couple guesses as to why in a moment. It's addressed to the bishop, the Catholic bishop at Noumea, who is the highest ranking church official in the colony at the time. And it has a full message for the bishop on the back. No, I've blown my thing not having the animation. But this closely, and you see the 15 and 20 plus the 10, the overpayment by 10. It may have been that the senders thought the 10 centime postcard was not valid because it was so old. And so they added the proper 35 centime rate. Or it could be they simply did not have enough proper stamps available, and this was as close to the rate as they could get. But it's a genuine usage. It's not philatelic. And when you read the message, it's absolutely delightful. It's a strongly but gently worded rebuke from the Protestant mission at Pandemi, addressed to the bishop at Noumea, who refused the Protestants a school for 4 years and who opposed the conversion of the natives, the local natives, to the Protestant faith. So here we are, 1904, fighting out the Reformation from 1517. And so I'd just like to acknowledge Martin Luther, who has helped create this card for my collection. The Ile-de-Pan, which I didn't mention when I showed you the map, was at the southern tip, about 40 kilometers out in the ocean. It was a little village, and it was primarily a prison where they kept prisons from the commune of Paris. And here's a letter posted to one of those prisoners from a small village in France in 1897, addressed to prisoner 3375 on the Ile-de-Pan. However, when it got there, the prison was just closed as part of an amnesty for the communards. But apparently they found this prisoner, and since it was unpaid, you have to double it. The 25 centime rate becomes 50, and he had to pay 50 centimes for this letter from home. And it's a marvelous usage of the 50 centime postage due stamp, proper usage, and it has a Roumet certificate. Here's a letter from the little village of Neuhue in New Caledonia. It's got 15 centime and 10 centime Jubilee overprints and a 5 centime regular, so it's 2 times 15, 30 centimes. And it's to a small village of Barai, so it's from a small village to a small village, which is nice. But there's more to the story. If you look very closely at the stamp on the right, you notice at the lower right, you can see some black printing. When they did the overprint on the black stamp, they did it in black ink at first, and no one could see it. So they redid it in gold ink to make it more visible. So The 10 centime stamps, this printing actually have two Jubilee overprints in black and gold. And here's an example of that used on letter, but they didn't like that either. So they redid the 10 centime overprint, overprinting it in red, as this postcard shows. From the little village of Dumbia, the Jubilee overprint. This was actually illegal. You could not use this for overseas mail, according to French regulations, but this was 1906. They probably really didn't care, or the post office didn't actually see the red on black overprint. So it's proper use, it's canceled Dumbia, it's got a French arrival, nothing philatelic, full message. And when you turn the postcard over, what do you see? You see the packet boat from line T getting ready for departure. It's boarding for departure. And a large contingent of the town is out to see the boat off. You know, you have to remember, these are the boats that brought the mail back and forth, people and goods. So it was critically important to the colony. There's a nice picture. The last thing for this part, the franchise militaire stamps. I collected those from all the colonies, and this is one from a small village in Noumea, just to show you one. Very, very nice usage and how they were used. The franchise militaire stamps, starting 1901, each soldier on station got 2 free ones every month to send letters home. It was primarily to promote communication with the people at home that they instigated this, and also to simplify the military mail and the way they handled mail for soldiers on station. And I collected enough of these and had a lot of fun with them that I did a whole chapter for the European Academy of Philately, one of their annual volumes, probably about 18 pages of the use of the franchise militaire stamps in the colonies during the era of the group type. Just a little packet boat mail. I mentioned the local packets running on the east and west coast. On the left, you have a 15 centime rate posted on the ship running on the east coast, and the postcard at the lower right is posted on a ship running on the west coast, both into France. This brings me back to the point I made before, that there was a local 25 centime rate in New Caledonia prior to January 1899, when it was 15 centimes in virtually every other colony. When I first started collecting group type, and I would come across these 25 centime rate letters, local use pre-1899, I said they must be philatelic, and I ignored them. And then later on, I found out to my dismay that there was really a 25 centime rate from village to village in New Caledonia. And this is from a very nice Toyuho. It's very hard to pronounce some of these, this village in New Caledonia. Why did this 25 centime rate exist when it was 15 in every other colony? My best guess is the villages of New Caledonia are almost all located on the coasts, the east and west coasts of the island. There virtually was no road service because it wasn't possible to build roads then because of the terrain. So the local packets were used to transport local mail, people, and goods. And they were more expensive to purchase and run than the regular mail wagons and trucks other colonies used. So I think they were allocated an extra 10 centimes just to help finance the cost of running those packet ships on both ends of the island. Here are 2 examples from line T, double 15 centime rate. The 2 line T date stamps, which you already see. Now these are posted on the packet, and I'll call your attention to the upper one, single use of the 30. That's actually quite a good usage, and I never did do an article on single use of that, but I should have. And then from New Caledonia, there's a tiny bit of packet boat mail. Not much because the line T provided such good service. The lower left, we have a letter that was posted on a commercial ship coming out of Noumea, calling first at Bombay, India. So we have the packet boat strike of Bombay, and then a special cachet for French mail, noting that this letter was received from a French ship, and then it's got a Bombay date stamp. Very, very nice combination. And the one on the postcard on the upper right, again, was put on a local commercial ship that called first at Fremantle, Western Australia, and the stamps were nicely canceled with the Fremantle duplex cancel, and then over on the left, the big bold pocket boat hand stamp from Fremantle. Again, good usage. What I also had on the slide you didn't see, in 1912, all the remainders for all the colonies of group type were overprinted 05 and 10 centimes to get rid of them, and they were shipped to the colonies. And these are all the group type remainders. New Caledonia only had 5 stamps available at the agency in Paris that were overprinted. And somebody created a letter using each of the stamps, but it just happens to be the proper 35 centime registered rate. So it's a nice example of the use of these overprints. I don't know if it's philatelic. I haven't seen any other mail to the addressee, but it's a good use of those 1912 overprints. So let's take a little look at the dependencies. Loyalty Islands, I've got a government franchise letter. You see the SCE for service. It's actually from a doctor who's a member of the health service writing to his boss in Noumea. And you can see he's got a little hand stamp with his name, and he put Lifu. That's the village he was at the Loyalty Islands. Going to the New Hebrides is much more exciting. I actually had about 15 group type covers from the New Hebrides. I'll just show you 3. The first one at the upper right is Port Sandwich, New Hebrides, to a justice in Noumea. Again, judicial business, using the revalued Jubilee overprints. So you got a 4, a 1, and a 10 to make the 15 centime rate. And you can see it's to a judicial official in Noumea. The one at the lower left is a 50 centime registered rate, combination of group type and Kagu issue. The Kagu issue followed group type in New Caledonia, and it's to German Samoa. And it's got a nice Suva British Fiji transit on the back, and the German Apia Samoa arrival also on the back. These are really exceptional uses of the group type stamp. But my absolute favorite use from the New Hebrides is this letter. I don't know if some of you are up to date on what I'm doing now, where I'm collecting philately and international mail order fraud. This is a registered letter from Port Sandwich, New Hebrides, to Professor A. Victor Segno of Los Angeles, California. Professor Segno was an American mentalist and charlatan. He sold success waves starting 1900 worldwide for $10 a year. There he is at the lower right. Each day he would send his success waves to his subscribers. $10 a year was $200 back in those days. It's probably about 150 pounds. That's a lot of money. And he claimed that these success waves improved clients' lives in success, influence, happiness, ambition, health, wealth, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And you know, that's a good bargain. And I have a collection of about 300 covers now to Professor Segno. And to unite his subscribers, he formed the Segno Success Club in LA, and he operated out of LA. And at the lower right, the big building he built in 1905 from all this money is the American Institute of Mentalism. And up the block is the Segnogram Publishing Company that published everything he needed. And this is the cover to Professor Segno. I think it's the only registered group type cover from the New Hebrides to the United States. It's amazing to think this had the equivalent of $10 in French currency for those success waves to be transmitted twice a day to Port Sandwich, New Hebrides. Here's a use of the Franchise Militaire stamp from Port Villa, the other post office in the New Hebrides. There are 3 Franchise Militaire covers from New Hebrides to France with the Franchise Militaire stamps, and I was a glutton and had all 3 in the collection. And finally, we get to Wallace and Fatuna Islands way out in the Pacific. And 2 examples from Wallace, the 15 and 25 centime rate. I don't have anything from Fatuna, or didn't. Alain Millet has the only Fatuna group type cover, and I couldn't pry that away from him. So we're going to take a little pause and a breath and start heading out to the French Pacific colonies, French Oceania. And okay, this is what the group type stamp looked like for the oceanic establishments. Okay, same design and everything, just different name in the block. I'll have more to say about the cancellation in a bit. The colony consisted of 5 main island groups scattered over 8.5 million square kilometers of ocean, with a European population of about 2,500 people, capital and principal city at Papeete in the Society Islands, a dozen small post offices, no French packet service. The mail was carried under contract via American, Australian, and New Zealand packets or ships, or it was carried by the packet boat system, and there was extensive use of the packet boat system from French Oceania. And the globe on the right, the arrow points to New Caledonia to see where we were. And then you see all those circled areas out in the Pacific. That's the oceanic colonies or oceanic establishments. Probably not to scale. I think if they were drawn to scale, at this scale, you couldn't see them at all. And this is from Langlois Beausoleil, again, the 1927 cancellation book, showing the colony, and you can see at the center left, the Society Islands, and that's where Papeete, the capital, is. And you can see the Marquesas Islands, about 1,500 kilometers northeast, and then the other 3 island groups. So that's what the colony looked like, and what the mail had to deal with. This one I can show you now that I know how to do this. The group type, you had an original set of 13 stamps. You had new colors, 5 issues in 1900. New values, which New Caledonia didn't get, 35 and 45, just a couple of overprints, revaluation to 10 centimes in 03, some Red Cross overprints. So it's only 26 stamps plus the postal stationery. And again, the major emphasis in the collection and the colony is mail from Papeete, the capital. And in my collection, 65% of the group type era mail originated in Papeete. And nominally, this is just a simple 25 centime letter, overseas letter from Papeete, from actually the office of the governor, which is kind of interesting. But it is to the New Mexico Territory in September 1896. I think it's the only piece of territorial mail, not United States territorial mail, that I had in the whole collection. And it's from Papeete to New Mexico. They traveled on a ship called the Manawai via Sydney, Auckland, Honolulu, and San Francisco. It has transits October 5th, Auckland, San Francisco, arriving at a larger post office, East Las Vegas, October 26th. And then it's in Hot Springs Station, its destination station, on February 1st. And what happened here, this arrived in October at Hot Springs Station's its destination, but they couldn't find the addressee. And they searched for him for November, December, January. They finally gave up February 1st. It was back at Hot Springs Station, put it in an envelope and shipped back to the post office in Papeete to be given back to the office of the governor. When it arrived in Papeete, it got the return to sender hand stamp at the left side of the envelope and lower left of the slide. And you'll notice this is not standard French issue. Most of the hand stamps in the post offices all came from France, but this one they made up locally in Papeete. And when they set up the end, they put it in backwards in L'Envoyeur. And they used that for about 8 years with that backwards end. And if you look to the right, you see a proper French issue return to sender. So it's just a nice addition to a really unbelievable letter sent to the New Mexico territory and never got to its destination. A little return receipt mail, which I didn't cover for New Caledonia. Prior to 1898, payment for the return receipt was on the outgoing letter, and the receiving office had to create the receipt. Starting in 1898, based on UPU rules, the sending office provided the receipt and it accompanied the outgoing letter. The receipt was completed at the sending office and returned. So here we have an outgoing letter from Papeete to Montreal, Canada. And you can see it's postal stationery envelope, 25 centimes postage, 25 centimes registration, 10 centimes for the return receipt. And the AR hand stamp was also locally created. That's not French issue. French issue is the Camford AR that you typically see on these letters. So it's a very nice example showing the 10 centime on the outgoing letter. I wish I had the return receipt envelope that was sent in response to this. I don't, but I do have one, or I had one from Baden-Baden, Germany. They needed to create a return receipt for return to Papeete. They didn't have an AV envelope, wasn't available probably at that moment. So they took an envelope they normally used for returning mail to the sender, crossed that out and added avis de réception, filled it out for the Bureau de Poste in Papeete, put the Baden-Baden hand stamp, a Baden-Baden registry label. It traveled as franchise registered mail, government business, French registered mail. And then on the back, you see Bremen transit, New York arrival, and finally a Papeete arrival. So the created return receipt created by the post office in Baden-Baden was in this envelope. Starting 1898, the post offices used their own forms that accompanied the items. Papeete chose to have the French put up special forms for Papeete, not to use just the general form. And here's an example properly used on a local letter in Papeete. All this business on avis de réceptions got me thinking about doing another article, and I did an article just on the return receipts from French Oceania. I had enough information. Something very unusual about the colony of French Oceania. In 1901, it began the 40 centime rate whatever, I can't get the right word here. And here's the single 40 centime stamp properly used at the upper left for a registered letter. For some reason, the 40 centime is extremely expensive on cover, but the usage is single usage is very, very rare. This is a nice example. So that's 15 centimes postage, 25 centimes registration. However, in 1906 June, the French community rate dropped to 10 centimes. French Oceania at the right, you can see, got the new 35 centime stamp that paid the single weight registered letter rate. Nice example of single usage. That's good. And you see the AR hand stamp for the return receipt. And then Oceania was one of 8 colonies that decided to accept the 45 centime stamp. And single usage of the 45 centime stamp is exceptionally rare. There are only 6 examples known from all 8 colonies. 3 3 from French Oceania, and 3 more from the Madagascan dependencies area, and that's it. And it took quite a while for me to locate a single use of the 45 at the lower left, paying the double weight registered letter. And of course, that warranted another article, my personal odyssey in finding proper use of that 45 centime stamp. Judicial notices, the local rate in Papeete was 10 centimes. You can see this is mailed to someone who's in the area in Papeetes. There's a little bit of Polynesian language history that I learned from Ralph DeBoard. First off, it's not printed matter because you're adding manuscript additions to the printed piece, so it goes at the 10 centime rate. And you can see it's addressed to someone who lives in F-A-A-A. And it's proper in the Polynesian language to string together a bunch of vowels. The only thing is you have to pronounce them. So the name of this place is Fa-A-A. Okay, and that's how the Polynesians would call that area of Papeete. And if you read down further, the addressee is being invited to a court session because someone claims that they are owed 1,237 francs 27 centimes by this fellow. So the court system is after him. Here's another example. You should see that. Another example of a 10 centime letter with the 1903 overprint. But if you look closely at the overprint, you can see it's a double overprint. So nice usage of a nice variety of the stamp, and you have the opportunity to collect these. Here's one of my very, very, very favorite group type covers. I think it's one of the prettiest. Military concession rate based on a 15 centime envelope, beautiful calligraphy, beautiful strikes of the Corps d'Armée Papeete date stamp, a solid strike of the unit stamp. You can see it's a detachment of Marines who are stationed in Tahiti, and a Paris Foreign Office arrival in blue to match the blue of the 15 centime stamp. So it's a wonderful military concession rate from Papeete. And here we have use of that 40 centime stamp again, paying the registered concession rate. This is a unique usage and just an exceptional single usage of the 40 centime stamp. And just to add a little icing to the cake, here's a triple weight registered military concession rate letter from Papeete, Corps d'Armée Papeete. And again, that's another unique usage. And this is one of 2 known franchise militaire stamps from Papeete, by far the better one. That's just the article that I showed you before on the military mail from both colonies, tying it together. So let's look at a couple of small villages going way up to the Marquesas Islands. It's easy to get material and it's quite unusual. This is a registered single weight letter from the Marquesas Islands, Teohea, via Papeete to the Austrian naval base at Pola. Very unusual, exceptional destination. You see the Pola 3, that's actually a transit. They had a couple of post offices in Pola, and this has the proper back stamp of Pola 2 on the back. As it says, it was a naval base in the Austrian Empire. Today, it's part of Croatia. Registered military concession rate from Teohea. No military date stamp, so they use the Teohea date stamp. Gets to Papeete, they use the Corps d'Armée Papeete as transit. Full military endorsement, validating the rate onto Paris. Combination of group type and provisional issues on type de bois. Here's a triple weight registered printed matter wrapper. That's 100 to 150 grams, going to Hamburg, Germany, via San Francisco, New York, and probably from New York, it went directly to Germany. And then one from Atuona in the post office, smaller post office on the Marquesas Islands to France, but the addressee was in Switzerland, so it had to be forwarded, and it was short 10 centimes from the 25 centime rate. There was no penalty for this because there's no shortage of stamps. That's the responsibility of the sender. So the recipient just has to pay for the additional postage. This comes from Alain Millet, exceptional. This is a postcard from, again, Atuona, Marquesas Islands, on a judicial notice where the judicial cachet has been used as the date stamp with the details filled in. There are only 2 examples of this recorded such usage. Okay, we go to Makatea now in the Tuamotu Islands. That's just above the Society Islands. Makatea for the first year used a hand stamp that just said Makatea, and then they'd fill in the date by manuscript. And the letter shows from Makatea a double weight registered letter to Japan with the 20 stamp. And you can see from the close-up, you can just make out the violet Makatea hand stamp and then the date stamp of 1911 written in by manuscript. Just a very, very nice combination. From the Society Islands, a quadruple rate registered letter to Palermo, Italy, which is quite an unusual rate, quite an unusual destination. And this is from the Debus collection that Jamais auctioned off in the late 1980s. Mail across the sea. This is amazing to me. It's just a simple 25 centime letter from Papeete to Peking, China. And, you know, that should be a more or less an everyday cover, you would think, until you turn it over. It left Papeete on January 12th, 1900, was in San Francisco February 18th, about a month, went up to Tacoma, Washington, February 20th to catch a ship back across the Pacific to Shanghai U.S. Agency. It was transferred to Shanghai Chinese Agency and finally delivered on March 29th, 1900 at Peking, the Chinese Agency. And that whole history is in that set of back stamps on the back. It's just a marvelous 25 centime piece. And finally, there was loads and loads of pocketboat mail from French Oceania because you know, they were just using the commercial ships to go to Australia, New Zealand, and the United States. The upper letter with the 2 10 centime stamps was on a commercial ship to Auckland at an incorrect 20 centime rate, but no French colonial postal official handled this letter, so no one knew it was 5 centimes short. It got to Auckland, it was handed over to the post office. They canceled it with a loose ship letter cancellation that they used on pocketboat mail and delivered it, no problem. And then the cover at the lower right is a folded 5 centime envelope that was sent on a commercial ship to San Francisco at the 5-cent commercial samples rate, not printed matter rate. You can see samples at the bottom. I don't know what was in there. And the stamp was canceled with the San Francisco double oval cancellation. And you notice the violet pocketboat hand stamp indicating pocketboat transit, except in San Francisco, they didn't spell it right. Okay, they used this incorrectly spelled pocketboat hand stamp for years and years and years. So that's French New Caledonia and French Oceania. That was a 10-frame exhibit. It generally got large gold medals nationally. Nationally, I never did any international exhibiting. However, in 2019, I realized I was getting a little long in the tooth, and I had this big collection of group type covers. And even though I had a lot more to do, a lot more colonies to exhibit, a lot more to write, I thought it was time to sell the collection. And Olivier Starker of Spink happened to get in touch with me just at the right time in 2019. And I said, yes, I'd be happy to have Spink handle the whole collection. The collection was sold November 2019. It was shown in Stockholm at the royal birthday party. The sale of the collection was announced and about 100 key pieces were shown. Then it was shown in Paris at the big November show, first week in November, and of course, the whole month before November in London. The sale was spread over 3 catalogs, spread over 3 sales sessions, and I'm happy to note that all monies received were invested in the Lenore and Ed Grabowski Retirement Fund. In November 13th, 2019, the Dow Jones was 27,700. And as of January 4th, it was 36,800. And I'm very happy to have my money residing in the group type collection, although I miss it very, very, very much. And here's the sale of the Oceanic and New Caledonian material, along with the French African by Spink. So that's my New Caledonia, French Oceania adventure, kind of a wild walkthrough of the group type stamps. I hope you enjoyed it. I'll be happy to take comments and answer questions. Thank you, gentlemen and ladies. Chris?
Thank you very much, Ed. So if you stop sharing your screen, that was quite, I think we're all, I think gobsmacked is probably the best word for it. Anybody who's got any questions, if you'd like to unmute yourselves and put any questions to Ed. It was a quite magnificent display, incredible material. I'm glad to see you had one cover from your charlatan that you've been talking about.
Oh, I have, yeah, I have about 25 French colonies covers to him. In fact,
I'll look out for them.
I'm giving a talk to the France and Colonies group, I think in March, US, on the success of Professor Segno in the European African colonies. This will be French, British, Spanish, and Portuguese. I think I cover them all. Segno was a marvelous fellow, and he really got through to the outside world with these success waves. Amazing. He sold nothing. He had nothing to sell, and people paid him money.
Well, his wave certainly reached you, Ed, with your success in philately. So it's worth $10 or whatever it was.
Well, this all happened because when I started going through when I first bought the first cover of St. Pierre and Miquelon, 1988, 89, I started wondering who this guy was, Professor Segno, and I started, looking him up traditional ways and making no headway. And finally, sometime in the 90s, I caught an article of a fellow who writes for the Los Angeles Times. And we've become good friends and Segno correspondents, along with a student at UC Santa Barbara. And we've been a little troika of Segno collectors. So that's been a lot of fun. And, it's just fun to do. It doesn't cost a lot of money either. That's important when you're old.
Yeah. With a collection like yours, are we very tempted to try and visit all these places? Have you achieved a visit to Polynesia?
No, we've only gone to Guadeloupe and Martinique, the close areas, and we've had delightful times in both, in the sense that in one aspect, the colonies are very colonial, with colonial African type culture and traditions, but there's this big French umbrella that covers everything.
Yeah.
So you might have the local fish lightly grilled with a little green salad and some boiled potatoes, but there'll be a wonderful Alsatian Riesling to go along with it.
I wouldn't complain about that.
And at least when we were there in both places, the people were very, very nice. We traveled a lot locally in both islands and just had a lot of fun. And then one day we came across a bunch of scattered notes, printed notes on the ground that turned out belonged to a student, maybe someone who was 12, 13 years old, who had thrown away, I guess school had ended, and he or she threw away all the printed notes they gave them. And we picked them up. And of course, it was for a history class. And these kids are learning the exact same history on the exact same date that the French are learning it back in Paris.
Yeah, yes.
Okay. And it was very obvious from reading all that history that, oh, they're learning all about Napoleon. Oh, I mean, we don't have such a high opinion of Napoleon in the United States, but in France, of course, it's very, very different. So,
but that was traditionally in French schools until relatively recently, that every teacher, irrespective of which département he was in or which colony, was on the same page of the same textbook each day.
Right.
And if the inspectors came in and found you behind or ahead, trouble.
But I don't know. I know, Chris, maybe you also met Jerry Massler, the fellow who collected Monaco. As I see Chris is laughing there. He's met Jerry. Jerry made it a point. He liked to travel. And at one point, he had visited 110 countries.
Wow.
He had actually been to French Oceania, New Caledonia. But we never ventured that far.
No,
we also did Barbados for the British colonies, and also had a delightful time there for a week. So
yeah.
Well, very glad to see we had one cover to Western Australia, or 5 Australia for Jan. I think it's the first time we've had a Western Australian item on Trots and Cults.
I did see it, and I was about to write a comment that Fremantle was spelt incorrectly.
really?
Yes.
Oh, I spelled it in.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's got-
okay.
you've-
Oh,
Yeah, you put 2 E's.
yeah.
Oh,
Okay. Well, I do things like that, and I've been doing it all my life, and it's gotten worse as I've gotten older. So I'll
It's
correct that.
delightful. Yeah,
I will make
delightful.
one other comment. If you enjoyed this lecture, down the road a bit into 2022, I also have lectures on Senegal independencies and Madagascar independency group type. So if you'd like to hear one of those, I'll be happy to present it. But down the road a
Very
ways.
nice.
definitely.
Yeah, at the moment I've got nothing arranged for some more meetings, but we'll have a chew on that, and they would be very good. I mean, what you showed this afternoon was quite extraordinary.
Well, this, I started collecting group type in '76 because it was very hard to get French colonies general issues. I was collecting Guadeloupe, and so I'd waste a lot of time at stamp shows. So I started buying these group type covers, just throwing them in a shoebox. And finally in '83, I did a 2-frame exhibit, and then I just realized the potential of this area for what you could do. And I hardly collected the stamps. Other people are doing, Stefan Buchheit, Colfra, is doing a marvelous job with the stamps. But I just did the postal history, and it was never ending. There was always something new that I didn't know about. And that still happens today. I see pieces that are, how did that
All
come
these
about?
small villages and unusual postal rates, they're fascinating. They really are fascinating. And just a little bit on the commune as well, because the commune that's where they were sent to New Caledonia, so many of them.
Yeah.
Some of them came back, a few of them.
I should mention for New Caledonia, Alain Millet of Paris has his New Caledonia collection, which I think is 5 separate PowerPoints on the web. If you Google Millet, Millet, and New Caledonia.
LME,
It should come up. And you can see what he has. I'm happy to say I think my group type is equivalent to his group type, and maybe I have a few things that he doesn't have, but he has a few that I didn't have either. So
both got very good collections.
Mm.
Has anybody else got any questions for Ed? I think we owe him a very, very big vote of thanks.
Yeah. Thank you.
oh, thank you very much.
It was very, very high quality. It is recorded. I'll stop recording now, but I will put the recording onto YouTube so we can all look at it later if we want to have a look.